All right, let's talk about diabetes. But hold on. We're not going to start with your diet or sugar or any of the usual suspects. We're going to dig into a hidden story. A story that might just flip everything you thought you knew about what causes it.
So, I've got a question for you, straight up. What do you think causes diabetes? I mean, really. The first thing that pops into your head is probably sugar, right? It's what we all think. But what if that's not the whole story? What if that's not even where the story begins? Okay, get ready for this, because this quote from our source material really frames our whole conversation today. It says, diabetes doesn't start with sugar, it starts with stress. Whoa, let that sink in for a second. That is a huge claim, right? It totally shifts the spotlight away from what's on our plate and points it right at our minds and our bodies. And you know, it makes sense why we blame food. It's the obvious thing, right? It's visible. But that's kind of like looking at just the tip of the iceberg. This whole argument suggests the real danger, the real problem, is what's happening deep down, below the surface. A quiet chain reaction that gets going long before you ever even think about dessert.
So to really get this, we've got to introduce the main character in this whole drama, a hormone called cortisol. You've probably heard of it. It's the body's #1 stress hormone. And look, in a quick burst, like when you're in danger, it's a lifesaver. But the problem is when that stress just doesn't stop, when it becomes chronic. Then cortisol stays high, and your body gets stuck in this constant draining survival mode.
Okay, so here's the million-dollar question. How does a feeling, being stressed out, actually turn into a physical condition like diabetes? It sounds kind of crazy, but there's a biological chain reaction. Let's walk through it step by step. We're calling it the body's stress cascade.
All right, check this out. This is the domino effect right here. Step 1, you get stressed. Your body gets flooded with cortisol. Step 2, that cortisol basically yells at your liver, hey, we need energy now. So your liver dumps a bunch of sugar, glucose, into your blood. And here's the crazy part. This happens even if you haven't eaten a single thing. Now, your body tries to deal with the sugar rush by releasing insulin. But, and this is the key, when you're chronically stressed, your cells they start to tune out. They ignore insulin. So that sugar is just stuck floating around in your blood. And when that happens day after day, well, that's what can eventually become diabetes.
And that critical breakdown, that moment when your cells stop listening, it has a name. Insulin resistance. It's really that simple. Your cells are resisting insulin's instructions to let the sugar in. This is the absolute linchpin of the whole problem.
So you might be wondering, what does this actually feel like in your body? Well, think about it. If your cells are being starved of sugar, their main fuel source, you're going to feel totally wiped out all the time. And even though there's plenty of sugar in your blood, your body thinks it's starving, so it keeps sending hunger signals. You feel hungry even right after a meal. And to top it off, this whole mess tells your body to store more fat, especially right around your belly. See, these aren't just random things happening. They're direct clues that your body's energy system is going haywire.
Okay, so now that we've seen that whole domino effect, it's time to kind of zoom back out and rethink things. We've got to learn to separate the symptom, the thing we notice, from the actual deep-down root cause.
And here it is, the whole story in one simple line. Stress leads to high cortisol. High cortisol leads to insulin resistance, and insulin resistance over time can lead to diabetes. Boom! The pathway is crystal clear, and notice what's at the very beginning. It's not food.
This completely reframes the entire conversation, doesn't it? It means that instead of just being obsessed with sugar, maybe we need to look at these much bigger systemic problems. We're talking about the hormonal imbalance from chronic stress and the widespread inflammation that almost always comes with it. These are the real culprits, the foundational issues. I love this because it puts it all into perspective. Think of it this way. Stress is what starts the fire. It's the kindling and the spark. The high sugar diet? That's like pouring gasoline on a fire that's already burning. Sugar is the trigger, for sure. But the root cause, the thing that let the fire start in the first place, is stress.
And so, that brings us to the big takeaway question, the one I want to leave you with. If stress is the root and sugar is just the trigger, shouldn't that completely change how we fight diabetes? Where should we really be putting our energy? What's the real battle we need to be fighting?